think we'll just go around the table and say who we are and what authority we're representing. My name is Susan Hinchcliffe, and I am leader of Bradford and chair of West Yorkshire Transport. Peter.
Hello, Councillor Peter Carlisle, Councillor in Leeds, but I'm here as one of the two deputy chairs of the Transport Committee.
Councillor Eric Firth, the Kirklees councillor, and I'm here as the other deputy chair.
Councillor Matthew Morley, I'm the Cabinet Member for Planning and Highways at Wakefield Council.
Councillor Adele Ray, Councillor in Leeds for Bramley and Stanningley Ward.
Councillor Moses Crook, Deputy Leader at Kirklees and Transport Portfolio Holder.
Councillor Scott Haslam from Featherstone Ward in Wakefield.
Councillor Lisa Martin, Leeds Transport Engagement Lead.
Councillor Jonathan Pride, Deputy Leader of Leeds and Portfolio Holder for Transport.
Councillor Andrew Pinnock, Kirklees councillor from Cleckheaton.
Melissa Liebird, Head of Passenger Experience and Transport Services here at the Combined Authority.
Thomas Locke, Transport Policy Manager at the Combined Authority.
Councillor Debbie Davis, Baildon Ward on Bradford Council.
Councillor Neil Buckley, Ludley Ward in Leeds.
Councillor Howard Blackburn, Leader of the Conservative Group on Calderdale Council.
Councillor Tony McGrath, Kirklees Council for Valley North.
Councillor Abdul Hanan for Leeds and Headingley High Park Ward.
Councillor Gentleman, Bradford Council.
Councillor Matthew McLaughlin from Kirklees. I'm the Transport Engagement Lead for Kirklees.
Councillor Colin Hutchinson from Calderdale. I'm the Transport Engagement Lead.
Councillor Chris Still from Bradford Council.
Councillor Sarah Courtney. I'm the Transport Portfolio Holder from Calderdale Council.
Caroline Firth, I'm the Transport Engagement Lead at Bradford.
Afternoon, Dave Haskins, Strategic Head of Major Projects at the Combined Authority.
Tim Taylor, Director of Transport Services here at the Combined Authority.
And Simon Warburton, Executive Director for Transport.
Thank you very much. We're ably assisted today by our committee services.
Rotimi Olorunfemi here. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. So, apologies for absence.
All right. We have apologies from Councillor Kate Ravilius, York Council. We have Natalie Sykes and we have Fatima Kansha. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Declaration of disclosable pecuniary interests. Non-indicated. Thank you very much. Exempt information. I don't think we've got any exempt information today, have we? No. Minutes of the meeting of the Transport Committee held on 23rd of July. Rotimi, I think you've already said there's been some error there.
Yeah, there was a duplication of one of the items in, I think that's for the bus, transportation for bus. Sorry, just a minute.
Yes, I think Councillor Courtney has spotted it as well.
Yeah.
Just a minute to explain.
Well,
okay, yeah.
Yes. Simon?
Thank you. So, yeah, apologies to members. The introductory text, the first half of the text, under the minute for item 8 transport operations, the eagle-eyed members such as Councillor Courtney will have noticed that's actually a reproduction of the bus minutes. So the rail minutes actually start with the line the chair invited officers to introduce the report. So apologies there, Chair.
Thank you. Just to show we're paying attention, Councillor Courtney's got more.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you very much. Yeah, so under in the minute 7 transport operation bus paragraph, transport operations bus, in paragraph 3 it says that I'd brought up about one of the bus services being reduced, and it's not the 159, it's the 591 to Burnley. So if that could be amended, please. Thank you.
And Councillor Firth, I think you also had a...
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Under item 7, where we're talking about safety on the bus network was raised. I just think it's key that we put about safety of women and girls, because that's what specifically was discussed, rather than general safety. We obviously said it'd be brought to another meeting, and I know it references that in the pack today as well, but could we have clarity on when that will be brought, please?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Firth. Both the lead from West Yorkshire Police and our lead internal colleague are both taking a well-earned half-term break this week, so they will be here for the next meeting to guide members through the work that's been undertaken.
Thank you very much. Anything else on the minutes from anybody? No? In that case, are we happy to correct with those provisos, those amendments, of course, are we happy to accept those as a correct record? Please show in favour. Please show. Thank you very much. That is carried. Thank you very much. So, with that, we get on to the paper's substantive ones. Transport operations bus. There's quite a lot in here, isn't there? Who's going to start this, Tim?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I will obviously take the paper as read. I was proposing, as I've done previously, just to pull out some highlights in terms of key items that may be of interest to members, and then obviously hand over for comments and questions. So walking people through the paper, I think probably the first observation that people will want to note and pass comment on is around the position on patronage. Members will note that there has been a notable decline in the most recent quarter, Q2, of 8%. That in itself is clearly, as a standalone, cause for concern, but there are a number of explanations within the paper as to the reasons why that has occurred, some of which are attributed to reduction in operated mileage, some environmental factors around things like weather, various behaviour change initiatives, and changes to fares as well. So whilst we should be concerned, what it is really important we do is maintain a close watching brief on this particular issue, make sure that this is just a one-off and that we've got some really clear and strong mitigating actions in collaboration with bus operators moving forward to maintain a level of patronage as we move forward towards bus franchising. Moving on from that particular point, there is some hopefully useful information around Mayor's Fares Impact Survey. So again, members will note that we've had Mayor's Fares in place now for since 2022. You wanted to ask a question now? Sorry.
You can wait till the end.
Okay. Okay. So members will note that the Mayor's Fare scheme has been in place now since 2022. Since the change in fare back in March of this year, we've done a further survey, which is actually largely positive. So again, it demonstrates the fact that there's a high level of awareness, high level of recognition of the impact of the Mayor's Fare in terms of overall affordability. Although there has been a slight reduction in terms of the perception of affordability overall as a result of that fare change, as I noted. The research also sets out some changes in terms of the way that people behave in terms of response, and again a reduction in terms of views purely on the basis of that fare change as well. Moving on through the paper, I shall move you on to item 3.26, and again this is, I know, an area that members have taken interest and commented on in the past around our ability to both produce and distribute timetables in a timely manner to bus stops. You may recall that we've introduced some key performance indicators in this space in this financial year, making sure that we've got a really clear commitment and promise to passengers in terms of how quickly changes to timetables are both produced and then distributed out to them. It's reassuring to see that in the most part, certainly for information on our website and available at our bus stations, we are now on target in terms of being able to do those things on or before the date of change taking place. Where there is still more work to do, and clearly we need to make improvements in this space still, is about our ability to distribute timetables out to stops on street and making sure that we get those done in a timely manner. The report notes a current 4-week delay in our ability to do that work at the moment, and I'm working closely with Mel and her team in terms of our processes and efficiencies that we can do to improve that particular performance. Moving on, I shall briefly comment on punctuality and reliability. We are, I think, actually in a relatively stable and strong place here. We have seen incremental improvements in terms of punctuality, going from 84 to 86% in that period, and also a reduction from 1.7 to 1.4% in terms of the numbers of cancellations. Members will recall in past quarters we've still been subject to some cancellations, particularly due to Aviva and Aviva's performance and ability to operate services reliably. That has now improved substantially and is relatively steady state. They are on par with other operators across the region now, but there is still improvements to be made because we'd still like them, and indeed all operators, to get to below 1%. I'd like to draw attention to service changes in 3.33, 3.34. Again, probably just to highlight and indicate that we, as a CEO, oversee an almost continual churn of changes that operators put forward. And again, these are being done either in response to operators making changes to routes, tweaking timetables to improve punctuality, or seeking to exploit new opportunities as well. So all of those are described and noted there. The paper briefly discusses under 3.38 our latest position on Access Bus, and again just wanted to bring to members' attention that we are in the process of procuring an entirely new fleet for Access Bus services here in West Yorkshire. A total of 33 buses will be procured and implemented, subject to approval obviously through the CA, and then with a view to starting those buses into operation from early next year. Last but not least, the paper sets out some information around our performance on bus stations and transport assets. Again, hopefully members will recognise there's an awful lot of work taking place in this space, both in terms of maintaining and repairing existing assets that exist, but also making significant capital investment into places like Heckman-Dwight and elsewhere too. So an awful lot of work taking place there to roll out notable improvement in our service standards. Chair, I shall stop there. I'm happy to take questions from any members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got a plethora of hands going up. So Councillor Pinnock started, so Councillor Pinnock first.
Thank you, Chair. I have two issues that I want to raise. Whilst I'm very much in favour of the work that's being done at Heckman-Dwight, there is another issue which has caused residents in my ward quite a lot of trouble, and that's to do with the bus lane between Oakenshaw and Chain Bar Roundabout. And one of the issues that is continually raised by people there is because of other works that have been done at the roundabout, buses are now not being held up by the roundabout traffic queuing problems, which was allegedly one of the reasons why the bus lane was put in the first place. The work is being done on the bus lane as we speak. But there's plenty of local people who will say it's not really necessary, and etc., etc. So I would like a proper audit of what the reasons behind all of this, including a road safety audit, because there is still an issue about buses having to get from the left-hand side of the road to the right-hand side of the roundabout in order to get the right lane when they come out the other side. And there is clearly, at least to my mind, an issue about the safe operation of that manoeuvre. The other thing I wanted to raise was to do with the reliability tables, and it does seem to me, and I'm surprised nobody's raised this before, but it doesn't. The routes that are talked about in those tables don't often compare with each other, because sometimes they're very big routes and sometimes they're very short routes. And I just wondered if there could be some observation as how you marry those two features together and make something that sounds at least logical. Thank you, Chair.
I'm going to take a few questions together. It's got quite a few. So Councillor Hutchinson and Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Chair. I continue to have concerns about Halifax Bus Depot. I know it falls within tranche 3 of franchising, but it would appear that at least half the surface area of the depot has been sold off and is not going to be available for certain providing depot services, particularly when you consider the increased requirement for charging up of vehicles, and hopefully restoring the services that have been lost over the last couple of years from Calderdale. And I would like some more detailed discussions about the adequacy of the remaining site and how that is going to be whether that's going to be adequate for our needs.
Thank you. Councillor Buckley?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to begin by welcoming 328 on page 9, the additional e-ink units, which is a slightly oddly named units which help the blind. And there are 74, apparently, units going into shelters. But I'd like to know whether that's the end of the operation or whether there are some more to be done there. But the main point I wanted to make was about the patronage figures, which was mentioned earlier. 8% lower, and the year-on-year decline is quite marked. And I just wondered what is going on here, because it's going to come to the point, isn't it, when there's going to be less revenue raised in order to improve the bus service. And I'm just wondering whether women and girls, for instance, the nights are drawing in, of course, dark nights. Is there any evidence that they have stopped using buses because of this? Or, in other words, what on earth is going on? Thank you, Chair.
So I think patronage is probably something that we've all picked up on through the papers. Yeah. I would like us to have a bit of a chat about that. But if we just pick up those points, I think Councillor Pinnock, your question about the bus lane, I think it's really a Kirklees Council matter, isn't it? Really, it's not really a West Yorkshire matter. I don't know if Councillor Firth, you wanted to come in.
Sorry,
on that.
some of the money has come from the.
I'm sure,
authority.
but it's managed by Kirklees, is it not?
True. Yeah.
Can I ask Councillor Crook to comment then on this, because he's been dealing with it from start to finish.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew, for your question on this. I mean, we've well established the need for the overall corridor scheme to prioritise public transport, and I think those priorities have been established and agreed both here and in Kirklees as part of a corridor scheme to benefit not just bus transport now, but future bus transport as we move into a world where we need to encourage and prioritise modal shift. This scheme is very well justified, and I'm happy to have an offline conversation with you if that would be helpful.
Thank you very much. Tim, can you just address the point about comparison of different routes?
Indeed, and I think you're referring to some of the content in the appendices here. So it is a challenge. We've tried through conversations here and with members of the Bus Alliance to get a balance of types of services that both perform well and perform poorly in terms of their reliability and punctuality. Inevitably, not every service operates the same. So you've got, as you say, lots of very short and very long services, and no great surprise, a very short service from a punctuality point of view has a greater opportunity to be on time because it has less opportunity to be disrupted. I'm happy to come back and re-look at the range of services that are included in there, in the top and the bottom. And what we didn't want to do is to present to committee the entirety of the list, because clearly that would be overwhelming. But it is really difficult to make direct like-for-like comparisons, because even on route length, a route length in one part of the region compared to another might be different based on topography and, you know, relative rurality versus urban density as well. So it's a challenge that I accept, but I think we can do some more work to look at how we best present it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And then something about Halifax bus depot. I mean, maybe something you want to take offline with Councillor Hutchison, because also some of that is commercial confidential. But do you want to so it can?
Yes, certainly. So it is an issue which we've reviewed at length as part of the depot strategy. So I'm aware that the team has challenged itself from a risk perspective, and is confident that the capacity that we're able to bring in is sufficient, both in terms of handling day one operations, but also giving capacity to growth. But what happily ask the team to provide a little bit more of a background briefing for you on that point.
And yes, good news about e-ink, which is very good. I can also, the bus shelter people who get those bus shelters sorted out in 4 hours, they should be given more work to do, like the timetable rechange on those bus stops. Can't we give it to them? I mean, they seem really good. So I think there is something about looking at those two services, one is excellent and one is not quite as excellent.
There is, and in terms of answer to the question, are these the last of them? Absolutely not. You know, we do intend to roll this technology out when we get life expired assets elsewhere as well. So, but we are starting, you know, as it means to go on in terms of that provision of information, as well as improve the provision of the paper timetables as well, Chair.
So, patronage, the golden question. How do we increase patronage across the whole region? Because that's something that we're all keen to do, and to get modal shift in a region that historically has very much relied on car to get around, and that obviously leads to us being in traffic for hours on end. So we do need to get us all to use the buses more. What is the answer?
So if we start with a little bit more background below the 8% figure, which came as quite a shock to myself, Tim, and senior colleagues when the data came in. So as you're aware, Chair, we've been spending quite some time, Councillor Carlisle has been closely involved as well in terms of looking to get underneath the data. There is significant spatial differences across the conurbation. So beneath that 8%, here in the City of Leeds, that period saw around a 6% decrease. In Wakefield, we saw somewhere in the order of a 13% decrease over that period. So we've been challenging operators in terms of the performance data through that period. We have seen something of a decline around reliability, and the numbers of services operating, and we're challenging hard to understand the factors behind those. Generally, those factors relate to a combination of available drivers and available vehicles. So we're pressing the operators very hard on that front. We think there may well be a number of other seasonal factors. We're looking at a summer period. Summer periods can be more susceptible to variation, where there's less of a traditional commuting period than at other times. So we're going to be looking closely at the autumn data that we receive through this next quarter to establish whether we're starting to see a meaningful trend here, or whether we've seen a blip in performance. We've also recently agreed to maintain our marketing campaign, the name of which has just fallen out of my mind. Walk it, ride it, which also applies to a bus promotion programme as well. So we're going to look very closely at how we can target that programme around bus travel, and then of course we look ahead in the context of bus franchising, and I wonder, Chair, whether actually it's timely for us to bring some more information back to the committee just in terms of the work programmes that are underway to prepare for bus franchising, with franchise services now in tranche 1 just 18 months away. Within that programme in particular, we are making sure that we've got the right data handling arrangements in place. And members will be aware that at times at the moment, when we receive this data, and this data of course is captured through observations, we're still working with partial data, and so we're still looking to piece a full picture together. Once franchising is in place, we're in receipt of all data, and therefore we need to make sure that we've got the right systems in place that mean that we can be tracking data not just on a quarterly basis, but a weekly and a period basis as well. So I wonder whether it's worth us bringing some more advice in on how we intend to do that, so that we've very much got our finger on the pulse in the future.
That'd be very helpful. And of course, other authorities across the country we're seeing have already moved to franchising. Their patronage is going up as a result. I wonder, Councillor Carl, if you wanted to come in on, surely the network has got something to do with it as well.
I was going to come in, I can touch on that point, yeah. I mean, there's a number of issues in the report that we pull out for seeing where this patronage might go. It's no surprise really that Wakefield, which has seen incredibly poor services that have only just returned to a reliable operation has seen a decrease in confidence of people using the bus, and that's something we need to work on. We've also got 3% fewer services than there were previously, and I think it'd be really useful to tie that up so that we have that understanding of as we seek to return services, what can we expect to see in certain areas, and we've got some of that from the BSIP. The one point I wanted to come into mainly was just that reminder that when the assessment was taken around franchising, it showed that a decline in the patronage and the revenue for bus would continue under private operations, as it has done since the mid-80s. We've seen a decline in many years. Now this has been more pronounced this year, and that's why we want to get really delve into the detail. But what the assessment showed was that by taking public control of the network, we would help to mitigate and turn around that continual decline that unfortunately we've seen. And as you said, Chair, in areas where they have already taken control of the network, they have been able to see that switch around.
Thank you very much. So I've now got Councillor Davis, Courtney, Crook, McLaughlin. If there's anybody I've missed anybody of that, Councillor Moore, did you want to come in now? Because if that was a Wakefield point.
It was just on the Wakefield point. And in one respect, to see the decline is no surprise to me when I think about it, seeing living in the Wakefield district. But this to me is the biggest argument for franchising, because when we've seen other areas with franchising in, patronage has started to go up, not decline. So if we don't do it, and I'm glad we are, where we're going to end up with no bus services at all. So welcome this. Thank you for the interventions that you have put in place in Wakefield. But yeah, it doesn't come in one respect a bit of a surprise.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. Councillor Davis.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a question about bus stop accessibility improvements. We were told about this about 7 months ago. I just wondered if there's been any progress on it, because it seems to have gone quiet. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I mean, as we've said, a decline in a reduction. If there's a reduction in services, it's not surprising that there's a decline in bus patronage to a certain extent, and that is quite frustrating. And obviously, the question is, how do we get people onto public transport? I'm hoping that that franchising will deliver that, and the implementation of GB Railways and having better modal integration will also be really positive. But just going back to that frequency, even in the report, the customer service, report, which is in 3.11, although that's talking about mayor's fares, actually 32% of people who don't use buses said that reliability and frequency are key factors that would get them back onto the buses. So I think that is getting the services levels back up is good. The other thing, though, that I wanted to say is that obviously the I mean, we've talked about bus lanes already, but bus priority infrastructure improvements I think should also help that. And so I think that there's lots of things that we can do in our local authorities to help some of these things, as well as sort of reducing congestion and stuff. So thank you.
So vote for bus lanes there for you, Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Crook.
Thanks very much, Chair, and probably just to illustrate the positive investment to grow our bus patronage in the future, I wanted to quickly note the positive progress on Heckmondwike bus station, which is well underway. Had a lovely visit there with the Mayor and along with Councillor Firth and some school children recently. The project is very positive. It will be the first Weaver branded bus station and on track for completion in spring. So that will help with bus patronage. And a fantastic investment into Heckmondwike, into that community, and much needed. Thanks to committee for supporting that.
Thank you very much. Yes, it looks great. Lovely, I love the pictures of that. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd first like to concur with what my colleagues have said. Turns out if you cut bus services and run them really badly, people don't use them. Funny that. And Councillor Moore is absolutely right. It is the best argument we could possibly hope for franchising going forward. The question I had was just on the declining patronage figures by borough. In the report, we have figures for Wakefield, Calderdale and Leeds, but we don't have Bradford and Kirklees. So could we please have those? Because I don't think it's any coincidence that we've seen the highest percentages in the area where bus services have been cut back the most by the operators. And just a second point on the appendix. Thank you for the inclusion of the extra data on the 5 best and the 10 worst services in the district. It's really in the county rather. It's very interesting, and the reason we put this in was to learn lessons about how do you get the best bus services and what causes the worst bus services. And what we've learnt is if you want really good bus services, you live in Keighley. What we've also learned is that by far and away the biggest single cause for the worst performing services is roadworks. So what lessons are we learning from this revelation, particularly as we go forward to Weaver? How are we planning to better engage with and mitigate this disruption?
I think, yeah, absolutely. That goes back to what we can all do as local authorities, work together in a franchised world, really. And yes, you've got a Keighley councillor next year and one on the table. I'm sure that they will concur with you. Keighley's the best place for buses. So a few questions there. Starting with Councillor Davis is about accessibility.
Apologies for any delays on this. What I think I'll propose to do is I'll write to you in person and give you an update in terms of latest progress, and we can include something in the next report, Chair, if that's okay.
That's fine, thank you very much. I think Councillor Courtney, you made a comment really, and Councillor Crook again. Councillor McLaughlin has some questions then?
I don't have the figures for Bradford and Kirklees, but I can happily send them over an email and we'll make sure they're included in the next report as well.
Thank you. Any further questions on this before we move on to the rail?
Can I just make a very quick comment, Chair, on the part about on roadworks? Members may know that we're implementing a control centre as part of bus franchising, so that will be a single place by which we control all of the highway activity in partnership, as you say, with local authority partners, and allow us to much better plan and coordinate that activity to minimise disruption, both in terms of proactive but reactive as well. So if there is a burst water main, for example, we can react to that much better with that environment in place. So that's a key and central part of our plans for bus franchising.
Councillor Carlo?
Yeah, very briefly on that. I did just want to point out on that point about roadworks, one of the services that's performing incredibly well on these, even though it is some length, is the X6 between Leeds and Bradford. Now that's an express service which helps, but also that's a corridor that has had significant investment in bus priority, and it has bus priority all the way into the centre of Leeds, which most of the other services going into Leeds don't have, which does show that although that disruption with the roadworks doesn't necessarily help, but providing that bus priority does help long term, and that's a scheme that I think buses on there saw 30% increase in patronage when that scheme first went in.
Yeah, that's a very good illustrative example, isn't it, as why the bus lanes, cycle lanes, just making sure people get around easily will make it easy for people to get out of the car. Okay, lovely. Well, thank you very much. Useful information there, thank you. Moving on now to rail, where actually, conversely, there's been a patronage increase by the looks of it.
Yes, I'll cover off the rail quite briefly at high level over the report. What we've tried to do in the report is slim it down from where it usually is, but obviously as a consequence of that, there's still a thirst for information, so we do have 3 appendices which hopefully set out more detail behind what I'm going to talk about here. Firstly, as Councillor Hinchcliffe said there, strong growth from Northern Rail, 9.5% year on year, with commuter travel up 13%. That reflects the greater trend towards return to office working. And leisure growth also up about 5%, and Northern done some strong campaigns around that, which seems to have paid off there. Similarly, Transpennine Express, 5% growth. I think that reflects the stabilisation of services. You know, we had the issues in the last year or more where services had to be pulled back while rectification measures were done. Certainly seems to have recovered out of that dip now. And LNER, star performers, as we've said before at these meetings, in terms of 26% growth, which is quite significant. And in terms of Leeds, while Leeds Station footfall has not yet returned on average weekday to pre-pandemic level, we're now up to 79%. And I think that's evidenced by anyone who comes through during the day. But certainly the weekends exceeding pre-pandemic levels, a strong leisure travel of about 105%. Moving on to service changes, and 3.7 report. This is one where we've set them out in Appendix 1, which is page 51 and 52 of your papers. Just to flag, there's a slight change from what was reported in there about the Bradford to Leeds service stopping at Shipley. Now, the LNER services which were going to stop additionally at Shipley as part of the London to Bradford services have yet again been delayed in terms of their implementation. This time it's by something which I don't understand, but it's a technical issue on the Azuma fleet to do with their computer software. And a firm date's been awaited, possibly December timetable, but it could be longer. Having said that, the platforms are already signed off, which is one of the things we had originally been waiting for. So I believe that will come forward in due course as soon as the challenges have been resolved there. In terms of rail network performance set out in 3.8 and to 3.15, there's quite a bit of detail set out there in Appendix 2, and we also addressed the query, I think, which was raised at a previous Transport Committee around what's called the P coding, which is the coding of, about the reporting of P coding and time to 3 and time to 15. So that's around how much trains are delayed, and that explains why the rail operators are using the T3 as the most effective means of reporting those. But again, happy to come back and relook at that if we need to. In terms of cancellations, Northern have a lower level of cancellations at 3.8% and TP at 5.2%. Things are operating well generally in terms of the time to 3s, with Northern at slightly down at 78.4 and TP at a very similar level to where they were before, it's about 67.9%. In terms of this time to 3 performance, LNER have a similar performance to TPE. Cross-country trains are the area where there's been a significant drop-off at 46.2%. I think I'd like to get a little bit more under the skin of, I suspect that's due to them being longer services generally, and longer services do generally tend to bring in more delays. Passenger network enhancements in the report we set out in 316 to 323. A key area worth flagging is the Transpennine route upgrade blockade of Huddersfield, where there was a 30-day closure recently. That has gone off generally very well. It's regarding the rail industry with a lot less issues than anyone had been anticipating. And I think a lot of credit must go to the TRU team and the rail industry for the way that was planned, handled, and the level of proactive and reactive measures that were put in place at very short notice to do that. What I found interesting out of this as well, only this week, I know we as a combined authority have been pushing, and we're pushing TRU to ensure that we keep as many people on public transport as possible during this blockade. And it was really, really pleasing to see that actually demand levels were maintained during this period, which I think was quite, not just impressive, but I found quite staggering that rail demand and rail/bus demand was maintained during that period. So we had a TRU member working group a couple of days ago where we got quite a lot of really useful information around how the TRU blockades have been going and what's coming in the future, and around lessons learnt. In particular, they're going to be directly applied to the next blockades, which the big one that's coming up is in Church Fenton area over Christmas and January, which will significantly affect services at certain times between Leeds, York and Hull. Sometimes, in fact, there may be no trains between Leeds and York. So I think the fact that they've been through this in Huddersfield, while there will be disruption, does bode well for the future blockades, of which there are significant numbers coming forward over the next year. And I think we'll continue to plug those and talk about those and raise awareness of those through these forums. Meanwhile, on TRU, Department for Transport has formally approved the closure of Ravensthorpe Station as part of the upgrade from the 13th of December through to summer 2028. There'll be a rebuild of the station a couple hundred metres from where it's at, and that will be reoriented to serve Dewsbury Riverside with its 4,000 houses. So there will be a positive at the end of this, going back to the point around traffic disruption and breaking eggs and all that kind of thing that goes with it. In terms of projects, a very brief overview has been given in Appendix 3 around White Rose, Todmorden and Pontefract. I'll elaborate slightly on a couple of those here. On White Rose, work does continue to resolve complex legacy issues relating to the halting of activity. We have a remobilisation strategy which is in development, which will allow clear timescales to be developed, and we'll be bringing an update to the combined authority, and that will include the role of scrutiny, which we've had looking at the project, and lessons learned we'll be bringing into play. So things are moving on White Rose, but it has been challenging. In terms of Todmorden, this is the accessibility scheme at Todmorden, which local members will be aware has not moved at the pace that was anticipated. We have been working very closely with the rail industry to ensure that this is delivered as efficiently and quickly as possible. And we now have a clearer way forward on this than we did back in July, when I know members were expressing concerns around that. And again, we're happy to give some local briefings on that as we now have a little bit more information that we did. We can do that outside this meeting as needed. In terms of Pontefract, you'll also be aware there were some significant challenges around delivery of the project following the funding that Northern had, and they had to cast off their contractors, and then we had to look at a new mechanism for delivering the project. We have worked very, very closely, and the Mayor in particular has worked very closely to secure some funding through what's called DFTO, which is the Department for Transport Operating Company, which oversees the rail franchises. And this will now allow the accessibility scheme to progress. Having said that, there's still more work to be done through looking at the contracting approach, and we will come back with an update following further meetings with the rail industry. But a lot more positive by a long way than it was 3 months ago around Pontefract and the accessibility scheme there. Well, on the subject of improvements and sort of good news in a way, it's definitely worth flagging the train naming ceremony and special train wrap launch that was held at the end of September in Castleford for Rob Burrow, which was very well attended by public, by politicians, by the family as well, and lots of other people in the rail industry. A very heartwarming event that was, and well received. Finally, I'll just touch on rail reform, which is 324 to 328. And again, we have done some work with combined authority members around rail reform to try to bring them up to speed with where the process is up to, and sort of scratch beneath the surface a bit more. But at the high level, it's worth flagging that significant engagement has been taking place and will continue to do so with Great British Railways and regional and national partners. It's very important we see that the rail positions we come up with around rail reform will align with mass transit and bus reform, particularly around things like branding and ticketing. So it's joining up the dots is key for us. Work now is centring around defining the future shape of the railway, including what statutory powers the Mayor will have as part of a new rail industry sort of structure. And as I said, we've been keeping Transport Committee up to date with that. We will be commissioning some wider activities to support us to build on our existing body of knowledge. So while all this will take time, we're not standing still, and we'll be mapping out with the rail industry, and we are mapping out with the rail industry to identify interventions and measures over the next 3 years in areas of integration, services and investment, to make sure that we can continue to enhance and improve the railway and its operation. So on that point, I will pass back to the Chair for questions.
Thank you, Dave, for that. A few things. Firstly, I personally worked quite hard to make sure those platforms were ready at Shipley for the 25th of October, and they were, because I made sure they were. So to find out the rolling stock is now available is particularly frustrating. So how do we resolve that quickly?
I think we are working as closely as we can. It is out of our hands, this. This is all to do with the technology on the fleet. We're getting weekly updates from LNER on this, and I'll continue to update you on this.
So I need to know the detail behind that, and I will go and find out what's going wrong and sort it out myself, if that's okay. Because it is so beneficial having that investment at Shipley and all the additional trains from London that we need to make sure the whole district feels the benefit of that. So let's get on to that. Obviously, there's good news in here about rail patronage going up. I suppose, could some of that be to the detriment of the buses, I suppose, is my question.
Sorry, Mr. Final, could some of that be?
Of detriment to the bus patronage. Bus patronage has gone down. Is there any correlation?
I'm not clear if there's any correlation. I think we might have to look at when we get some of the perception surveys coming out in the coming months to see whether there is a move in that direction. I've not heard anything around that, but we will look into that.
Thank you. Councillor Morley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And Dave, thank you very much for the update on Pontefract. There seems to be a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel now. I thank everybody for the work that they're doing on that, but I would appreciate an update as soon as possible, especially for the elected members of Pontefract, who have put a lot of time and effort themselves into that, and also the local MP, who I know has taken a particular interest. So I do thank you for the work you've taken on that already. And at 3.3 point, the Rob Burrows naming ceremony. Just once again, it was raised initially at this committee earlier on this year, and I thank the officers, the mayor, yourself, also yourself, Eric, but also members of the committee for supporting us on that, because it was a truly great day to see his family all there supporting it, his children in the cab of the train, and it's been seen all over the north of England now, so it's a great testament to Rob that, so I thank the committee for all their support on it.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Chair. Over the last year, Calderdale's Planning Committee has given planning permission for some quite extensive housing developments in Elland, and these were factored into the business case for Elland Station and into the local plan in Calderdale. And I was just seeking assurance as to where Elland Station and the associated access package is in the current pipeline of projects.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Courtney.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to hear that rail patronage is up, and it was interesting to note that that some of that was summer weekends were particularly successful in the Calder Valley line, and I'm just wondering if there's that integration between the Peace Hall and their summer concerts, which are obviously sort of going on, and a lot of those, I mean, they are during the week, but as well, but at weekends, and I just think that if there is any correlation between those, that's a really good a good example of how everything, how all the different bits fit together, you know, the sort of regeneration in the economy and transport, and how important that is in that. So I think it's regeneration in action, isn't it? It's really interesting. I'd also wanted to mention the Calder Valley Line Community Rail Partnership, which our council supports, and along with Rochdale Council, and it's the other side of the Pennines, but they've been very active in promoting travel on the Calder Valley Line, and it would be great to see some of these benefits extended, possibly to other stations on the Calder Valley Line that go into the combined authority. So I know that Greater Manchester Transport Authority do support them a little bit as well. So maybe we could look at how this transport, you know, the combined authority and its transport function could support the community rail partnership, both on the Calder Valley Line, but maybe in other lines within the authority as well, because some of the benefits that they bring in terms of economic benefit as well is, you know, not just patronage, but actually other associated benefits is really positive. And I think on the same line, I know we haven't got the train operators here today, but my ask to train operators would be would be around working with community groups, working with the business forums, for example, like in, I know it's a very sort of hyper-local example, but in Mythenroyd, which has got a massive, great big car park and never really very many cars there. It was used very successfully for a park and ride last year for Christmas markets in Hebden Bridge, and just bolstering that sort of work with, you know, community work again. It affects economic growth within our towns across the combined authority, and that's, you know, we're all looking to promote economic growth. And just finally, I would like to say that I would really welcome to have a local briefing about the Todmorden Access Station. It's really good to hear that solutions are coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if I could just refer to White Rose Station, because it does say here at 3:20, progress continues on White Rose Station. And I realise that progress is continuing as far as officers are concerned, because they're talking about it, or I think I heard it right, reverbalisation. I've not heard that one before. But nevertheless, the public don't see any progress at all. all they see is an abandoned station. So I realise that certain things are confidential, obviously, but given that the original completion was January 27, can anybody say anything about when the eventual completion will be?
Thank you. And Councillor Davies.
Thank you. Just a quick one on Grand Central. Their reliability figures seem to have slumped, and the numbers cancelled seem to have gone up quite a lot between May and June and July and August. And I just wondered maybe why that was, and if there's any way of reversing that and getting it back to better standard. Thanks.
Thank you. It's a good range of questions there, Dave. Do you want to start with Ellen Station, I suppose?
I'll work through the ones I've got on I've written down here. Let's have a look. I've got Councillor Morley in terms of Pontefract update. Certainly, yeah, we can do that. I think we've got something scheduled in diary, but you probably want something sooner than that to go through. We are still waiting on some information, but as soon as I've got something which makes it meaningful, I recognise that a lack of communication doesn't necessarily mean nothing's happening. Things are happening now. I think in terms of the Ellen Station and noted by Councillor Hutchinson around the housing development, a lot of work has been going on around the development of the station, as you know, and the access package. That's currently due to be coming forward, I think early, probably January, February, I can't remember, in the new year for full approval. That's been considered through as part of the wider capital programme that's been looked at the moment. But we are on track at the moment to bring that forward. There doesn't seem to be anything holding that up at the moment. That's my awareness. Councillor Courtney's point, I think, around the summer concerts and Peace Hall, I think is a bit of a wider point really for me around I know Northern and TP have been working very hard and innovatively around promotional measures for rail, and as I said, as you can see, the growth in leisure journeys is significantly picking up. I think there's certainly a piece that we can certainly look into the numbers to see whether what kind of additional traffic is being carried on those days of concerts. I think that'll be quite revealing in itself, because I'd imagine there are some significant numbers there. But I know Northern Rail are looking at whether they can do more around evening services in general for the nighttime economy. That's not a quick fix, but it's something they are aware of. There's something to go at there in terms of the market that does exist. I think the point around community partnerships and forums, again, I know the rail operators are very active in that space, and anything more on that we would certainly welcome. And indeed, the briefing on Todmorden, we can do that as well. On the Grand Central point, I will need to look into the numbers. I did look at that earlier, and I didn't get a chance to ask questions. What's that behind that to bring to the meeting here today? But we will come back on that. In terms of White Rose Station, if I pass across to Simon Warburton to say a couple more words there, if that's okay.
Thank you, Dave. Quite rightly, Councillor Buckley raises that White Rose has taken some time to bring to a conclusion. We would clearly, were this a project of our own management as the combined authority, we would be bringing forward more into the public domain. Of course, the reality of the White Rose project is that it was a project that was instigated and managed by a private sector partner, and therefore we aren't at liberty to divulge the contractual arrangements between the private sector developer and their contractors. However, we've been, Dave in particular, has been working very closely with the developer, with Network Rail, to safeguard the combined authorities' investment in the project, and to offer up our capacity as a project delivery body to look to bring the scheme to a conclusion. We think, subject to a small number of remaining legal matters, that we are approaching a point now where we're going to be able to bring a proposed recovery plan to the combined authority, and I'm hoping that we can have reached the right point with third parties such that I can put that on the table for the December meeting of the combined authority.
Thank you very much. And community rail partnerships, and we do put money into community bus partnerships, don't we? So presumably the same thing would apply to community rail. I don't know, but it didn't go on microphone saying that. I think that was a yes, Councillor McLaughlin. So Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. I would like to start by saying thank you for including the P coding in the appendix. I've been asking for a while and it's finally there, so thank you very much. Moving on to the TRU, just on point 3.18, it talks about the closure of Ravensthorpe Station and the rebuilding, which will start December this year, finish summer 27. But it does say that the rail replacement bus will only operate until May 26, which is a year and a bit short. So I wonder if that is an oversight or a mistake, and can we just have a bit of reassurance that we will get replacement services for the entire closure period? But also, just to pick up on something that Dave said in the report, the blockade of Huddersfield, by and large, considering the challenge, was a remarkable success by the TRU. They were mightily impressive with how they handled the sheer volume of disruption. The extensive works that happened at Brighouse were no small thing, and they happened in record time. And the staff at the stations, I had it reported to me, were absolutely lovely and couldn't do more to help everybody. So they deserve a massive thank you for that. And we spoke to them yesterday at the TRU working group online. A few teething problems about signage and some inconsistencies around bus operators in smaller local stations. But overall, they deserve a great big thumbs up. So thank you.
It's important to say well done, isn't it? Because this is an industry fraught with challenges, but I think Councillor Firth, you'd agree that the transport upgrade is, fingers crossed, going well so far.
Yes, Chair. Yesterday's meeting was illuminating, to say the least. I think the Network Rail officers went through everything from the thread to the needle, going back from as far as Church Fenton to Staley Bridge. Everything is superb. Their operations are streamlined. They are really doing a good job. They illustrated about the blockage, and they told us about the future blockages, particularly in Huddersfield. And that's going to be another month blockade back into this year. And I can only congratulate them for all the work they're doing. They're absolutely fantastic. On the signage, by the way, I did mention this to Michael, is it? Councillor McLaughlin, that the signs keep disappearing for some of the smaller places, like Marsden. And I won't be surprised if they finish up in the Antique Roadshow in a year or two's time, because they keep continually replacing them. Going back to my friend mentioned the celebration regarding the unveiling of the new train, the branded train for Rob Burrows. You've missed Wakefield Councillors off in 323 because the leader and deputy leader were there. Also, the Member of Parliament, she was there too. But can I congratulate Richard Isaac on behalf of this committee. When it was first raised by Matthew, all that time ago, Matthew didn't know, but I was talking to Richard constantly about making this possible. And we all berate the operators when they arrive. You know, we do take that opportunity. But in this instance, I think I'd like to congratulate and put it on record. But Richard, Isaac and Northern made this possible. And just like to thank you, Chair. And thank you, David, for a very, very comprehensive report. I've never heard one like that before. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. And just a bit of reassurance, I think, on the bus replacement, I believe it's going to continue.
What I can say, it is deliberate when it says May 26, but that's not necessarily a cause for concern. The issue they have at Ravensthorpe is it has been a lightly used station, and there have also been some challenges around how you get buses in and out of that area. But I think this aligns with the approach taken by the TRU team, which is let's see how it goes and then see what we need to do at that point in time. They haven't ruled out that it will be there. They haven't ruled out it won't be there, but they're saying if there's a need, they will serve it. There is a view that some of the people who use the station may just use local buses because they probably have to come past the local buses to walk to get to the station anyway. So it's a live issue that they'll be dealing with over time and work out what the best way of dealing with it is overall.
Okay, so prioritising rail passengers' needs, I think, and just they will make sure they can actually get to where they need to get to. I think Councillor McLaughlin is the answer to that. So I'm not seeing. Councillor, sorry, I forget your name.
Blackburn, thank you, Chair. As a Big House councillor, we actually benefited from an increased footfall, and it's an absolutely wonderful place. I call it the centre of the universe because actually we've got a lot of development. And this morning we had we went to see the new market, so we had a lot of strangers come into Big House and actually shopped in the town as well. So it was beneficial to us.
Just a quick one to sort of echo what you said about the TransPennine upgrade. I mean, not only have they done a great job and closed within the time they said and everything was delivered as they should, they've also got involved in the local community, created jobs, worked with our local college, worked with our local football team. So it's been absolutely awesome to see them benefit our town as a whole, whilst also disturbing it by closing the station. They've also really got involved, and I felt that's helped mitigate the closure on the basis that there's so many jobs, so many opportunities, and obviously people love it when people get involved with the football team. And I think they're an official partner now this year. But going back to just a question, TransPennine, sorry, the Penistone line goes through my ward of Home Valley North. It was mentioned in the last meeting, I believe, that an additional train was running now about 9:30 or something, and it's great to hear more trains are running on that. But when are we going to see 2 trains an hour? It's always in the pipeline, it's in the strategy, it's mentioned, but when are we going to see it? Is there a date? Is there a plan? Thank you.
This is something, Councillor Firth, you've been pushing for some time, is it, Penistone Line?
This discussion yesterday back at Kirklees and with Councillor Crook, and Councillor Crook, I'm sure will be delighted to tell them about the plans for the Penistone Line.
Is now the time, or are we waiting for a more auspicious time? I don't know, Councillor Crook, up to you.
I think probably we'll wait for a more auspicious time, but I'd like to thank Tony for bringing up the Penistone Line. It's important we keep it on the table at every possible opportunity. 2 trains per hour. Yeah, we're on it.
We're not auspicious enough, I'm afraid. We need to work on auspiciousness. Fine. Any further questions before we move on to the next item, Councillor Courtney? Briefly.
So just very quickly, just while we're talking about frequency on train lines as well, my colleague Councillor Hutchinson earlier mentioned Ellen Station, and we just sort of just want to keep it on the train operators in their minds really, that in the future when we've got the housing in place and we've got the station opened, it'd be both Elland and Brighouse would really benefit with having a more frequent services going through there. Because at the moment from Halifax, for example, I think it's only like 1 train an hour or so, and I think again, you know, if we want to we want to get people out of their cars onto public transport, increased frequency on that line needs to be planned well in advance. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that as a comment. Yes. Lovely. Thank you very much. It does strike me actually that the TransPennine upgrade, they would do well to tell other infrastructure companies how they're doing this, because there are other infrastructure companies operating in the region who will not be named, who could learn a lot from an organisation which, as you say, takes community seriously, works with the community, thinks about what it's going to need next whilst it provides disruption. And I think there's a lot of learning for other companies there, and we should probably bottle that and export it for other organisations. I'm happy to prep those people to come and listen to it.
Hopefully that will continue with into the far future, because this project is not going to be finished till 2034, I believe, as far as Stirling Bridge. And I know the Chair and I and colleagues have discussed it and representations, whether they've been listened to or not, to keep that 5,000 people together and just turn sideways and do the same to the Calderdale line. That would be brilliant, Chair. I'm sure you agree.
Or to the Bradford-Huddersfield as well at the same time, I have to say. So we've lots of rail ambitions, and I'm sure we can all be fulfilled if we just keep them in West Yorkshire, these people, and don't let them go anywhere else. Right, so with that, again, it is an update, so we don't need to vote on that paper. But moving on to the item number 7 then, which is Mayor's Fairs update. Now, Tim, is that you?
It is, Chair, thank you. Yeah. So hopefully, again, members will have had time to read this paper. This is really a paper seeking support and endorsement from this committee in terms of our approach to managing fairs into the near future. So members will recall and recognise that Mayor's Fair scheme has been in place now for a number of years and was launched back in September 2022, and has been subsidising both singles and day tickets for all of that period of time through to today. We've derived an awful lot of benefit from having that scheme in place. You know, around 83 million journeys in total have been benefited from this scheme, and again, you know, it is good to see that the network has been making use of that, and it would be of concern to see the amount of damage that not having this scheme in place would have created without such a fair scheme supported through BSIP funding. Members will also note that there's a national scheme in place that came after our local scheme here in West Yorkshire, and that national scheme has changed and morphed over time, and it has been extended a number of times, most recently as part of the spending review back in June from government. And the original scheme, the national scheme that is, was due to end in December of this year, and again we aligned our scheme to end at the same time in anticipation of that taking place. So with the extension to the national scheme, and clearly with franchising approaching rapidly here in West Yorkshire, we are seeking to manage as best we can the continuation both of the existing scheme and maintaining affordability for passengers here in West Yorkshire. Typically what we do each year is to allocate a known proportion of our BSIP programme each year to provide that funding for the Mayor's Fair scheme. We're not able to do that at the moment because we haven't yet had the final confirmation of our integrated settlement here in West Yorkshire, and hence really the existence of this paper is to seek support from members that we provide a short-term extension to allow that funding to be confirmed, and then with a full-term view of a plan towards the end of this year, or certainly into early next year at the very latest, to give us a transition that takes us all the way through to bus franchising. This paper is also quite timely because the next item on the agenda people will note is around our fares ticketing and retail strategy, and very much, you know, what we do on Mayor's Fairs shapes and you know, gives an understanding to what we might want to do to fares under a franchise network in future. So this is just seeking, as I say, Chair, support from members in terms of our approach here. Members will note that the proposal is to take some funding away from our network enhancements allocation within BSIP. I want to assure members that will not have any detrimental effect on the existing network that exists today and allows us to continue to protect the services that we're using BSIP funding for. So I shall stop there, Mayor, in the interest of time, but happy to take questions in terms of the asks of the paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And indeed, obviously, the next paper is very much about the long term, and I do want us to get onto that discussion actually, because that's about how we inform the combined authority when it comes to setting fares for the future, what price our fares are going to be. And because this money has been so short term, it is very difficult for us to plan here, isn't it? And we do need to do that planning because we know where we're heading with franchising it, and obviously we need to figure out how we get there with the right fares for the right groups of people. So I don't know, comments, questions. I'll bring Councillor Carlow in as well on this item. Councillor Hutchinson, then Councillor Carlow.
Thank you, Chair. It's about the table in Appendix 1, which I've struggled with trying to understand. And I think it's probably because the boxes are not clearly labelled, but it seems as if the 4 million that's being reduced from network enhancements all falls on tranche 2 and 3. So I'm not sure if there's a way of displaying it more clearly, because there's 2 minus 4 millions and 1 plus 4 million on there.
So I think this may be just presentational. The ask is a single 4 million, of which, as part of our approvals process, is allocated to what's called tranche 2 and tranche 3. That's part of our assurance process that we have to go through here at the combined authority. To some extent, it is irrelevant. We no longer consider these funding elements in individual tranches, and DfT have allowed us to relax the rules in our approach to treating our treatment of this funding. So this table is really a lift and shift of what will go through the assurance and back to the department. But again, from members' points of view, I would suggest I wouldn't concern yourself with that detail.
So a presentational issue, it does add up, Councillor Hutchison. So no further questions. I'll go to Councillor Carlow for this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important point is coming on to the next paper, which is around what we do from fares from now on. This is a short-term fix that we have to put in place, because obviously we need to notify bus companies about what the fares will be in no short order. Hopefully very soon we'll find out what the funding agreement is for next year and how much funding we'll get as West Yorkshire, and then we can have a better conversation about how to spend that. But yeah, I think one of the struggles that we've been in, and we've been here before several times, is trying to work out what funding we have to enhance services. One of the issues is, as soon as you enhance services once, you obviously have to pay for them for all of the years after that. So we're struggling at the moment to enhance and provide money into the network to improve services without knowing, one, what services may be cut by operators that we might otherwise have wanted to pay for, and two, how much money have we got going forward in order to keep those services going. Obviously franchising solves that problem by giving us control over the entire network rather than just small amounts of it, so that's what we're looking forward to.
Councillor Buckley, you indicated there.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask about this £4 million transfer. It's a lot of money, and I just wondered, how has that figure been arrived at? And secondly, reliability is said to be the most important factor in bus patronage. Well, surely taking 4 million away from the bus service improvement plan must have an effect on that situation, doesn't it?
Not really on that, because at the moment we may pay for services to run. Where we pay entirely for a service, they're under contract with the combined authority, and we can take, we have requirements in there based around the punctuality of that service. If a service is cancelled, we don't pay for it. So if a service that we pay for doesn't run the 8 o'clock from wherever to wherever, then we won't pay for it. If a service is run by a commercial operator at present, then it's up to them to make sure that runs reliably, and the correct person to take that formally through the channels is the traffic commissioner. We would rather be in a place where every single service was contracted and had those higher level requirements that they have to make for reliability and punctuality to us directly to deal with those services. So that, at the moment this funding is going into paying for whether services happen or not. It isn't really going into paying for whether services are reliable or not, which is for the operator to bring forward.
And Chair, if I can just briefly answer the question around the calculation of the 4 million. So we have a forward forecast of how we generate individual payments to each operator, their commercial in confidence, but each operator has a rate of payment, and it's based on a formula. We come to commercial agreements with them every year. It's an annual process that we go through. We have forecast patronage, so we anticipate how many types of tickets will be sold on an annual basis, and then we've just made allowances on the basis of effectively volume times price to come up with these numbers.
Thank you very much. Any further questions before we get on to the next paper about ticketing strategy? No? Well, in that case, I'm happy to propose the recommendations outlined in 2.1, 2 and 3 there. Councillor Carla will second that. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much, that is carried. So moving on then to the Weaver Network fares, ticketing and retail strategy. This is one thing that we obviously have, this is our first opportunity to input into this, but I think the committee would probably like further input as we go forward, because it is quite a crucial engine room of franchising into the future. So who's speaking on this? Tom.
Brilliant, thank you, Chair. So this report sets out for discussion key points concerning the development of a fares, ticketing and retail strategy for the Weaver Network. It sets out a vision for an integrated multi-operator, multimodal offer that provides customers simple and affordable fares with different ways to pay to suit their personal travel needs. Aligned to the emerging Mayor's local transport plan, the strategy is needed now to guide development of a fares and ticketing offer over the next 10 years of transformation as we work to deliver the Weaver Network. First, in the short term, as we transition to bus franchising, this will see the combined authority take responsibility for setting fares and tickets and managing bus fare box revenue in a move away from the current system, which is led by private operators. It will also guide us in the medium and longer term through rail reform, the development of a new mass transit system, as well as the potential addition of forms of micro-mobility to the Weaver network, such as e-bikes and inevitable technology changes as well. Firstly, I'd like to draw your attention to the proposed strategic objectives at 3.8. Presented for the committee's endorsement, These draw on current customer challenges as well as strategic direction provided by existing policy documents. So the proposed objectives are to create an understandable, consistent and simple offer, facilitate transport integration and maximise regional connectivity, ensure affordability and equity of travel costs, supporting equal access to opportunity for all. It also includes more generally encouraging greater use of public transport and finally establishing a financially sustainable offer. It is proposed to complement these objectives with some commercial success factors which recognise that fares revenue will play an important role in funding network operations. As such, we will need to continue growing the market and manage risks, especially as the combined authority's level of control over total offer and customer experience continues to evolve. 3.14 sets out in a bit more detail a proposed customer proposition, including an integrated mobile ticketing and journey planning app and ambitions for contactless pay-as-you-go travel across all public services. Cash payments and smart cards will also stay as part of the offer to support inclusivity for all passengers. The report updates that work is now underway to model the demand and revenue impacts of different fares and tickets. It is assumed the combined authority will want to continue offering concessionary fare schemes and discounted or free travel for certain passenger groups. 3.22 provides for discussion principles for how the combined authority could consider which groups we offer this benefit to, but we will need to consider how we financially subsidise that cost. Initial version of the strategy is to be brought to the combined authority for approval in December, and a more detailed version of the strategy will be developed throughout 2026 alongside an implementation plan, and that is before any decision is made on what exact fares and tickets to offer to passengers once the Weaver network is operationalised. And I'll stop there and see if there's any questions.
For that, so this is obviously subject that we need to put a lot of thought into going forward, and there's lots of expenditure that we would love to do on this subject, but going forward you need to decide, you know, where the money that we've got goes. So questions, Councillor Courtney?
Yeah, thank you. I think the development of a multimodal fares and ticketing is really good and will be of great benefit to bus and rail services and in Calderdale and across the whole region in the longer term. Yeah, really like that. However, the cost of the bus franchising process will be, obviously we know that will be a key factor along with any funding settlements. I really like the strategic objectives set out at 3.8. And then just in terms of 3.22, looking at at the sort of thing around subsidies, I just think it's really important that we make sure that subsidies benefit people who are furthest away from economic activity. That feeds into our inclusive economy work across the region. You know, it's something that locally as well in our local authorities we're all really keen on, to adding to the growth of regional local economies and making sure that it's evidence-based and that we're getting the right people, not just based on what we think might be nice, but actually is based on evidence of who is furthest away from being able to access jobs, health, skills, education, all of those sorts of things, the people that we really need to connect up with public transport. But yeah, it's really positive, really liking this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Councillor Cook?
Thank you, Chair, and I think this builds on what Sarah's just said, really. I think it's really important that when we discuss any future concessions, we use a strong evidence base to back up our decisions. And I also note the criteria down in 3.22. There is extensive evidence that care-experienced young people have reduced access to opportunity and are disadvantaged to their care experience. So collectively, as parents to these young people, I would very much like us to reflect our corporate parenting responsibilities and prioritise the provision of concessions to this group, what I see as a clear equivalent to the taxi of mum or dad. Really just to say that I hope committee agrees with this priority and will support in due course when we make these decisions around franchising. Thank you.
Councillor Cook, thank you. And Councillor Pinnock?
Thank you, Chair. Now, the thing about this item is that I don't know whether there is any element of blue sky thinking involved in this, but having been on a short trip to the Netherlands recently and seen how you can integrate different forms of transport with each other into a system which is very heavily used by people, and it's very heavily used because it works. It's on time and all that sort of stuff. And I'm quite sure that at the back of everybody's mind in planning this network is we need to be working towards that kind of system, because you have a place like Leeds where the bus station and the railway station are quite a long way away from each other, and although that might work in some contexts, in other contexts it probably isn't a good idea. Now, I know you've probably got to knock some buildings down in order to achieve that, but this is why I say a bit of blue sky thinking, well, I won't say never did anybody any harm, but that's perhaps the wrong way of putting it. But it does seem to me that we have to think about how we want our public transport system to actually work for people, so that they can get about, not just doing one journey, but then what happens at the end of that, and you've got to catch another train or a bus, and it's a very awkward distance away, which it is in a lot of our towns. If there's any way we can try and bring all these things together, so that it isn't a long walk from one thing to the other, with loads of heavy bags, for instance, but is you go out of the railway station and there's a bus station immediately outside. I know that's an ideal which isn't going to happen in some places, but I think we have to think like that, so that we can take any opportunity at all that helps towards that objective.
Okay, thank you. Councillor David?
Thank you. I understand that the cost of the Weaver rebrand has been raised previously, and we've been told that commercial confidentiality is the reason why it hasn't been disclosed. I just wonder if you could elaborate on that as to why it is commercially confidential. Thanks.
Thank you. So do you want to take those questions then, first of all?
I think it's the first question about the cost of a Weaver brand. Is that for you, Simon?
Just to confirm, we have published the cost of the consultancy support that we have for producing the Weaver brand. I'll circulate the link to members, so that you're aware of that.
And then Netherlands, do we know anything about the Netherlands?
We do, and I agree with Councillor Pennock that there's an awful lot that we can learn from a number of European cities. It would be remiss of me not to point out the fact that public transport systems in many European cities are, of course, very heavily subsidised, and that helps significantly in terms of their performance. But nonetheless, absolutely, we are going to make sure that we benchmark what we bring forwards. We are members of UITP, which is the international public transport body, so we do have channels to be able to do that through.
Okay, Councillor Carlo, did you want to come in there on that one?
No problem. I mean, I was just coming to that same point. The Weaver network, just to fully confirm, it isn't a bus network. It is the West Yorkshire's first truly integrated transport network. So when you look at the network, it covers bus, rail, it will cover tram, it will cover bikes, it will cover taxi, it will cover your walking routes as well. It is the way people get around West Yorkshire, however you may choose to do so. And that's a really powerful thing that we haven't had the opportunity to do previously. But as Simon points out, other European capital cities and other European cities and countries have had the ability to do that, but also have had that investment in to do similar for many years. So this is something that, unfortunately, we're already starting on the back foot against many cities, but we can learn off them and hopefully jump forward in the queue.
Thank you very much. And obviously, Councillor Cook made an impassioned plea for care experienced people, care leavers. I know Councillor Steele did something similar for people who with disabilities before 9:30 at our full council meeting last week. So there are those different groups who I'm sure we would all support. It's just how we establish that and how we afford that.
Yeah, so we are. Tom is preparing a piece of work that is intended to bring forward an evidence-based view on need from a number of different perspectives, so that we can ensure that the advice that we bring forward to members considers a range of groups within the community. And you're able as members to be able to consider the needs of those different groups according to the transport related exclusion issues that are faced by different groups. I'm also aware that Councillor Pennant raised the issue of physical interchange, and just to emphasise that we are absolutely focused on physical interchange, but ideally not by knocking down buildings. I should stress. One of the advantages that bus franchising brings for us is that we are able to set detailed routes, and therefore we can look at the extent to which services route themselves through adjacent corridors by railway stations, for example, and for us to be able to draw those services closer to the railway stations. And then, of course, also continue to work with our local authority colleagues on well-lit walking routes between bus stops and rail stations, all of which helps in terms of interchange.
Lovely, thank you very much. Now, Councillor Steele.
Yes, as you said, I'm very keen for the disabled passes to be extended before 9:30. And Manchester's already had a trial in August, and they're running one in November for the expansion. I hope you'll be able to use some of that data in looking at whether or not what the cost implications might be for West Yorkshire, and if maybe at some point in the future you can run your own trial. Maybe before franchising occurs, before we make the final decisions, and just see what the demand might be and how usage might be affected. I'd like to point out that when we were looking at bus passenger numbers beforehand, the disabled numbers only went down by 0.1%. So it really is a significant usage and need there that can't really be mitigated, I think.
Just to reassure members that absolutely we are in close contact with colleagues at Transport for Greater Manchester. So at the point that they have some evaluation data of their trials, again, we'll be able to bring that into this overall evidence-based approach.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Councillor Simon. Any further questions on this? I mean, this is an item we're going to revisit, isn't it? Is it coming back in December, this?
So the combined authority, but then we'll keep bringing items on this next year as we develop a second version of strategy.
Okay, because I think this is an item where, as you see, there's different members are championing different groups, understandably, and we probably just need to understand that in the round and see what's possible with price tags. You know, so at the moment we're not on top of the detail of how much everything costs on this. So. Lovely. Okay, well, in that case, that is for noting at the moment, isn't it, that paper? There's no decision made on that.
Or
is there a decision?
We're
wanting to endorse it. Well, I'm happy to endorse it so far, as is Councillor Carlisle. So all those in favour, please show. Thank you, that is carried. So the next item then is West Yorkshire Homeschool Transport Policy Consultation Update. Tim?
Yes, this is me, thank you, Chair. So again, hopefully members will recall some work that was done on this, on particularly an updated policy earlier this year, and we took that policy to the Combined Authority back in July of this year. Just by way of a bit of context, and again this is set out in the paper, so the CA and through devolved arrangements with local authority colleagues put on around about 328 buses per day, carrying around 20,000 pupils and growth cost around £90 million a year. So a significant and extensive investment, which is clearly of benefit to pupils across West Yorkshire, but provides a very complex set of arrangements which are really difficult to configure and maintain over time. That really drove the case for change as was set out back to the Combined Authority back in July, and we did a public consultation on the proposed policy between April and June, of which over 3,700 people took part. So that consultation resulted in a new policy being put in place, which again is set out in the paper in 3.10, around an implementation of a sustainable travel policy, which encourages a blend of both walking, wheeling and cycling, making use of public transport in terms of general network services, or maintaining existing services where no reasonable alternatives exist, and again making sure that people have access to the right kind of service on the basis of need and availability is and remains important to us. So as part of that process, we committed to undertake secondary consultation with 6 schools that were proposed as part of that process. Those are listed in the paper in 3.12. And again, it's worth setting some degree of context here. In total, on average, around 195 pupils use the services across those 6 schools. So that specific consultation on those proposed affected schools took place and ran starting at the end of September and finishing only a matter of days ago. 3.15 sets out the approach we took for that consultation in terms of levels of detailed engagement, so writing to all affected parents, carers, all to every school, ward members, head teachers, and providing detailed information to all of those, both in terms of the proposed alternatives that we've been putting forward, some GIS information, so some maps around the kind of proposed network and areas affected as well, some cost and some usage data as well. So again, a very detailed and extensive process was undertaken as part of that. Unfortunately, because of the timing of this paper, what we were not in a position to do was to put in this paper the detailed results of that. As I say, it only closed a number of days ago, but we did commit to providing some information about the levels of involvement in that consultation process. I can let members know now that in total we had 148 responses across those 6 schools. Broadly speaking, equally applied across most of those schools named there, but with Appleton being the exception, with only 2 responses in total for that school. I know a number of elected members have written to us on this, and again, we've had engagement with both elected members as well in terms of concerns that they might have around the approach put forward. So whilst we are still working through the full consultation results, I think it would be unfair to try and give any preemptive views on the precise decision being taken, but this really is a paper to give opportunity for members to to pass comment both on terms of the process and the approach that we are now proposing to take forward. And again, note that a full decision will ultimately be taken to the Combined Authority in December in terms of any proposed changes for next September, Chair. So happy to stop there and take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Chair. I do have concerns about the withdrawal of Service C6 that serves Crossley Heath School. It serves a very rural part of Calderdale where the scheduled bus services are extremely infrequent and very unreliable, and so the practicalities of using other means to make that journey is not at all good. And I do hope that if it is considered to withdraw that service, that options for adjusting the commercial timetable to make it more appropriate for kids who are attending that school is taken on board.
Thank you very much. Councillor Davis, you're indicating it.
Just a couple of questions. So under 3.6 it says levels of provision are now not equally distributed across the 5 local authorities, but surely it should be based on need rather than equality of local authority, because each local authority is a different size, presumably has different numbers of schools and that sort of thing. So I was quite surprised to see that. That was one question on that. And secondly, on the value for money criteria, the services that are proposed to be cut don't meet the £2.35 per passenger trip criteria. But does that mean that all the remaining services to schools which are not affected, do they all meet that criteria? Thank you.
Yeah, so in terms of Service C6, you know, that's a concern that has been brought to us, and again we're looking at, you know, the implications of that change, and there are options to mitigate should that service be withdrawn, either through alternative arrangements in collaboration with the school or through adjustment to the existing network as well. So again, you know, this proposal in no way intends to leave pupils high and dry. You know, that's not the intention of these changes. It is to make sure there are reasonable alternatives in place. So I just want to provide that assurance, Chair. In terms of Councillor Davis, your questions, I think what the paper is trying to articulate about levels of provision is, even with the application of the policy, there are still inequalities in its use and deployment. And again, we have situations in parts of the region where there are only purely statutory or very little beyond statutory delivery of services, whereas there's other parts of the region where we've got really high levels of provision for people who have made parental choice to attend particular schools. And again, what we're trying to do through the application of the policy that's now been adopted is to bring forward a more equitable application of those changes, again with all of the principles that I've just described. In terms of value for money criteria, again, no, at the moment it is not just these 6 schools which might fall foul of that, might fall below that VFM. There are other schools involved, but what we wanted to do is to test our approach and principles with these schools as a starting point.
Thank you. We do spend more on this region on school transport, don't we, than other regions do?
By some significant margin, Chair, yes.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Thank you, Chair. Just building on that last point you made about money. It says in the paper that the cancellation of these services will save about just over £200,000. It doesn't say what will happen to that money. I think some people might want reassurance that this isn't a cash grab and there are actually good reasons for looking at these services again. But just on the overall point of the costs, just under £19 million a year to fund these, and about 45% of that, so 9 million, is subsidised by the combined authority. That is a ballooning cost, and I think this is a good start to reviewing this entire system and bringing it back under control.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, certainly in terms of the approach, we are very much trying to, you know, unpick some really long-standing historic arrangements here, and as I say, those costs do need managing carefully. We are using Bus Service Improvement Plan funding at present to subsidise elements of these services as well. So, but I do want to provide assurance that, you know, this process was never embarked upon as a means to save money. This is very much about making sure we provide more equitable and more sustainable process, very much with a view to how we then transition that into a franchise bus network in future, because as we've heard throughout this meeting, gives us much greater opportunities to flex and change services to maintain levels of demand and capacity on the network.
The idea would be that, you know, that we have a lot more network across the region where it's good for everybody to use a bus whenever they want to use it. Councillor Carl?
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of points. One, I did want to highlight, as with these 6, all of these services have what we believe to be alternatives, and that's what the consultation is around, is making sure people feedback that there are suitable alternatives. So there are bus alternatives to those ones in place at the moment at Crossley Heath, as there are in any of the other services. And in most of them, there's a number of different alternatives that people can put their feedback on. Just to your point, Matthew, on these costs have increased year on year, and the cost of some of these contracts has gone up by as much as 50% in recent years. Any money that is saved as part of this will not be a saving of money that we will suddenly find. It will be a decrease in the amount that these costs are increasing. We will not save more money than we're having to put aside emergency in the budget to make sure we're funding this provision. And in a number of these, we are providing services where there is a suitable alternative on the public transport network, and in many cases we could create that suitable alternative. Many young people already use the public transport network to get to school, so I think it's suitable for us to check that we are providing the same level of service everywhere. And I think, really, Councillor Davies, to your point, what I think the report probably should have said, and I know this is something that probably officers are a bit careful of using the word, is trying to provide fairness across the region, which is a better word, I think, than equity. We don't want the same provision everywhere, but at the moment provision isn't fair across every district. Some areas have a lot of provision that just wouldn't be there in many other areas, quite often because we've inherited as the combined authority whatever was there before and then amalgamated it. I don't think we've done the hard work of really looking at the network as a whole before.
Which franchising will give us the opportunity to do, won't it? Okay, so I'm not seeing any further indications on this. I'm happy to recommend those recommendations 2.1 to 2. Councillor Carl seconds those. All those in favour, please show. That is carried. Thank you very much. So moving on then to item 10, local transport update. We've seen the local transport plan quite a lot, haven't we, recently? And indeed, it came to combined authority last week. So I believe this is just making sure that the Transport Committee is up to date with this.
It is. I'll be very brief, Chair. Yes, the committee has been on a journey with us over quite some time in the preparation of the new local transport plan. So this report simply provides an update to confirm that the consultation process has now concluded. We have been successful in securing over 1,200 written responses, which I'm very pleased about. Very grateful to a number of members around the table who have been involved in different activities over the past 3 months as part of the consultation process. And we will be bringing back in the new year both a summary of what we have learned through the consultation and a set of proposals for any changes. 2 further items are noted in the report. One relates to the rollout of an electric vehicle charging programme, which I think members will very much support. An innovative approach to us being able to support residents who don't have a driveway but are looking to charge cars through a solution which, once you hear it, you wonder why somebody didn't invent it quite some time ago, in terms of a very simple conduit to make sure that we don't have cables for people to trip over. And also, we are awaiting, I believe within the next few days, confirmation of our active travel capability rating. As I sit here right now, I'm confident that we will continue to be one of a small number of authorities in the country with a level 3 rating.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hutchison, you had a point of clarification on here about 3.9.
Yeah, it was just the wording in paragraph 2.14, 3.9, where it wasn't clear who actually makes the application, whether that's each chief highway officer for each local authority, or whether it's done through WICA.
So the intention is that the process is managed locally through local authorities.
So it's the chief highway officer that needs to get the application by a week
or
on
appropriate
Friday.
arrangement.
Okay, thanks.
So we all need to chase back at base and make sure that's done, don't we? I'm sure they're all on it, but you never know. Okay, any further questions on this? I say we've seen it a lot before. No? Well, in that case, we note the progress. I don't think that's a decision, is it?
No.
Excellent. Okay, fine. And then we move on to the final item on agenda, which is the bus passenger charter update, which is what we're trying to do to obviously keep the operators on track pending franchising.
Change your voice, Chair. I'm going to let Mel take this paper.
Thank you, Chair. The bus passenger charter members will be familiar is our customer service commitment. It's what customers can expect to receive when they're using our bus network. As part of the development of the charter, there's been a commitment to undertake an annual review, and we wanted to give members some reassurance that obviously that review has taken place, but it's actually not just an annual review, it's business as usual for us. And so we're constantly reviewing, constantly engaging with communities to look at how we can make improvements and work with our bus operators as partners to make that experience as inclusive as possible. So just a reminder that the Charter's been in place since 2022, and it was formed, as I said, as part of a partnership with the bus operators via the Bus Alliance Group, and feedback from members of the public as part of the Mayor's consultation. We've got some very specific KPIs, and the report highlights progress made against all of those KPIs. There's 10 of them that focus around safety, coverage of the bus network, satisfaction levels and complaints, and bus performance and reliability and punctuality. In terms of just a very quick high-level review, just conscious of time, there's been very little change, I'm pleased to report, in terms of the core network and servicing our communities. So over 75% of our communities within West Yorkshire do have access. They are within 400 metres of the core bus network, and also serving most of our deprived communities as well, which is really great to make sure that that's happening. In terms of satisfaction levels, we've got some really good news around bus punctuality. We've seen a slight improvement, so 80% from 79%. Yeah. And then Metro Line, so customers, the way that they rate Metro Line has also increased from being rated as 6.2 to 8.1. That's really fantastic news. That service not only provides journey planning support to customers, but it's also quite instrumental in providing some safeguarding support as well, and giving people the reassurance just around communication with their bus services. Satisfaction levels of timetables have also increased slightly. I know we've had various conversations around timetables, and particularly on street. We know we've got improvements to make, but in terms of how customers are viewing it, they are definitely seeing a difference. And actually, we've also increased the number of timetables and casings on our street from just to 13,000 from just over 8,000 in 12 months. So again, some really pleasing progress in that space as well. Where improvements still need to be made around satisfaction levels, we are still seeing a disparity for people that are disabled compared to those that are not disabled. We've done quite a lot of work over the last 12 months to really try and unpick some of this and really think about what inclusive travel looks like. The report does highlight a lot of that engagement, as well as we've been giving regular updates at previous transport committees about some of the activities that have been taking place. Some of that work has led to some really good implementations of services. So, for example, back in May, we launched Sign Live, which is now called Convo, formerly Sign Live, which provides BSL support. So for BSL users, they've got a real-time kind of interaction with an interpreter, and they can very quickly relay information back to many of our core frontline services, which has been really welcomed. We have also seen massive improvements for those that are applying for free travel via our concessionary travel scheme. So the inclusive travel team was introduced into the combined authority. So we've managed to increase the application turnaround time from 20 weeks in many areas down to 8, and we've processed over 13,000 applications over the course of 12 months. So again, that's really fantastic for those people that really rely on free travel, and just making sure the applications are timely. And then just in terms of next steps, really, we obviously recognise that we have got some transition to do as we move, obviously, to the Weaver network, and as part of the local transport plan. So we're looking at how these commitments are going to evolve, and obviously we'll be working as part of the working with members of the community for that ongoing conversation, and looking at what we need to do specifically in terms of delivering on the series and developing a series of commitments moving forwards. So happy to take any questions around that.
Thank you very much, Melissa, for all that. Any questions of Melissa, Councillor McLaughlin, Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation and for the work that's gone into this. The issue I wanted to raise was around accessibility. It's very clear from the report how much work has gone into investigating the entire topic of accessibility of various kinds, which is great to see and is greatly appreciated. Thank you for that. But I'm pretty certain that at previous Transport Committee meetings we agreed to include a specific key performance indicator around accessibility and how we measure success and improvement, but it doesn't seem to be here. I can't remember which meeting it was, but I'm pretty certain that Helen Ellerton told us that there would be one. So I'm just wondering what's happened there. It's included as a pledge in the wording of the sort of the public-facing document, but I couldn't really see how it fitted into the KPIs and how we'd be measuring success. So if we could have an update on that, please. I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Courtney?
Yeah, thank you very much. As a member of the Bus Alliance, Calderdale has been very supportive of the passenger charter and continues to do so into franchising. In paragraph 3.21, there's highlights the problem of keeping timetable cases up to date at bus stops. And it is a particular problem in Calderdale. I don't know if it's because we're sort of particularly rural, and it was mentioned in one of the earlier papers as well that we've got a bit of a lag on that. So any improvements in this area would be particularly welcome. Thank you.
Councillor Hutch.
Thank you. Regarding concessionary fares for people with visual impairment who obviously can't drive, the average of 8 weeks, is that's still 2 months to actually get a concessionary fare arrangement. Is that equally spread across the whole of West Yorkshire, or are there particular areas where it's significantly longer? Because I know locally there have been difficulties in the support services for visually impaired people in Calderdale, and I just wondered if that's reflected in the applications for concessionary fares.
That's a really good question, thank you. Sorry, am I okay to answer that one? Sorry. Yeah, I don't have the details specifically, but I will get those details for you and we'll give you that breakdown that you need. Thank you. Sorry, the first question. Again, I'm going to need to come back to you on that, I'm afraid, because I need to double check what the specific request was and look at why there's been an omission on that, but I will come back to you on that one.
Councillor first.
Yeah, just a very quick one. 3.20 around the information that we haven't got from bus operators around the last bus guarantee. This is something we've discussed at length in previous meetings, and once that information does become available, could someone please circulate it to us so we can have a look?
Yeah, so let me take that on quickly. We've had the majority of operators return, but just not all of them. So as soon as we get the last few stragglers, we'll get the data circulated. I think it does still say in the report, anecdotally it is quite low, but really this should be a non-event. We shouldn't be cancelling buses, the last buses anyway. It's something that operators recognise as a real issue.
Okay. Any final questions? We've got 5 minutes to go. No. Okay, well in that case, I think we note this one, don't we? We note this one? We're noting this, so thank you very much. And the only other thing on the agenda was the date of the next meeting, which is 29th of January, but I think we might have some workshops before that.
We do. We have, I do apologise, we have a workshop on active travel in December.
And we'll circulate the date.
We'll circulate the date.
Lovely. Can I say thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance, and we'll see you at the workshop. Thank you.